Good evening, and welcome back to Alton Drew, a political blog. Um, Thanks for spending a few minutes with me this evening. And by introduction, again, I'm Alton Drew, and the purpose of this show, I'm here to share thoughts on governance, um, specifically the approach that's used by fractions of the political class to order society through a mechanism that we call government. The framework that I'm using here on YouTube is to simply answer questions that you offer regarding government and to help you craft tools that can help you properly analyze governmental action. I'm not here to give answers. I am here to share my insights on how to best understand what government is doing. My thesis overall is pretty simple. The role of government is to wash, rinse, and repeat. Government manages the day-to-day operation of an energy extraction machine. Government creates a platform on which energy in the form of labor, your knowledge, your entrepreneurship, and your capital can be exchanged. All this is for the purpose of increasing individual wealth as well as the government's own treasure. To the extent that the welfare of the public is not irreversibly damaged. Government is not your friend. It's a washing machine. Now let's get started. I had I received two questions early this week and promised that I would get to them. And again, the framework here is pretty simple. I want to get your insights as to what government is, your opinions on what government does, any benefits, any cost that you're incurring because of government. We're in a midterm election year this November 2022. A lot of talk going on about how well the Democrats are going to do, for example, whether Republicans are going to take both chambers of the Congress. And if that were to occur, one of the things we have to consider is what is going to be the outcome, what are going to be the changes in the White House regarding how Mr. Biden runs the administration. Would it be less belligerent with Republicans? Are we going to see that side of him where he said during the 2020 campaign that he was a bridge builder, if you will? He's a great unifier. If he loses both chambers, are we going to see this? We're going to see this unifier? Maybe, maybe not. I personally believe that Mr. Biden may be more comfortable in that setting, given that he is from the old school. Mr. Biden, you get all kind of numbers being thrown around about him being there 100 years and all that nonsense. Mr. Biden has been in Washington well over 40 years. He knows where the bodies are buried. But, more importantly, he should know how to reach out across the aisle and get policy done. Is he going to pursue policy? Is he going to be in any position to pursue anything? Is he going to be a lame duck for the next 2 years? Now, lame duck is a term that's usually not used during the second half of a first term. It's usually saved for definitely the last 2 years of the second term. But in Mr. Biden's case, being that we don't know whether or not he's running in 2024, he says so. Whether that happens, we don't know. He's up in age, I believe, around 78, 79. Somebody correct me. So there are those things to consider. And those factors are going to impact how he governs after November 2022. Again, if he loses both chambers, uh, do we see that conciliatory bridge builder, or do we see someone who just completely retreats from policy? Um, we don't know. Right now, his agenda has not been completed. He's still uttering "Build Back Better," and that has not yet passed. He got an infrastructure bill passed later, late last year. Is he going to work on that? Is that something that he can use with the Republicans to again gain some type of unity? We don't know at this point. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see um, the tone of the campaign season. I think right now we're heading into it officially. This is July. I can't recall right now off the top of my head um, when the House and the Senate will adjourn and go home for the summer and start campaigning. That's usually late July, maybe early August, around August Monday, as we West Indians will say. So that's when things get heated up. But again, it's going to be interesting to see his change in governance, but for you, more importantly, how that's going to impact you and your family. Okay, so um, let's get. Hopefully, I can get to two questions. We're not going to stay long tonight. It's Sunday. It's after 10. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. So we'll get to we'll definitely get to two questions today. Let's go to the first one. Uh, this is from um, this is from Campbell in California. Um, Another rule here on my show: you send in a question, I'll use your first name and where you're from, but that's about it to protect your privacy. Okay. So this is from Campbell, um, out in California. And full disclosure, I've known Campbell for 50 years, maybe a little less. So, so it's great to get this question, and great to hope, and looking forward to getting an answer out there. So here's the question: how is it possible that blacks as a group rate highest among other groups in terms of love of country, quote unquote, but the mainstream media paints blacks as oppressed? Okay, just a little data. I just got this from Pew Research. When it comes to trust in government by ethnic group or by race, um, 30% of Asians trust in government either most of the time or just about always. That's 37%. Hispanics come in at 29%. 29% of Hispanics trusting in government either all or most of the time. Blacks are at 24% and whites at 16%. So by the data, um, Asians seem to be a little more supportive based on their numbers. However, I could flip that to say, if you look at total population, um, blacks and Hispanics have more weight than Asians. But within each group, proportionately, um, Asians seem to have, as a group, more trust in government. Um, why, I don't know, but that's what the number stands. I want to research those numbers because yes, blacks do have an elite, well, I don't want to, well, allegiance can be a bit fluffier word. Um, Trust, I don't know. I understand Pew had to craft a question and use it and put it out there. But, and love of country, I would say, ironically, that's probably a better term, um, given what any group may know about living here versus somewhere else, um, and given the amount of oppression that blacks have faced here, um, given my familiarity with that, and I say familiarity because even though I've lived here a long time, I want to be respectful to the Black American who was born here, raised here, descended from people that were brought here as slaves. Um, so I use familiarity versus knowledge, deep rooted knowledge of. But yeah, blacks, this is their country. They built it. So there's going to be some allegiance to it based on what they know they've done in terms of making this country the powerhouse, the economic and military powerhouse that it is. Um, we can go through a long list of accolades of events, but I can say that with a surety that based on their contributions, um, blacks still continuously fight for that respect because this is their home. So, however, when it comes to again, love off according to the data, as a group, Asians, a larger number of Asians have that trust. But then again, other groups have not gone through what blacks have gone through and continue to go through in this country. Now, regarding how the media portrays black oppression, um, on this portion, I strongly agree with where Campbell is coming from. You have to look at you have to look at the let's break down this the wording here a little bit. Mainstream, we can dispose of that real quick. Your traditional media, the media you see every day, everybody from NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, even CNBC. Anyone out there that you turn on Bloomberg, you turn on your television, they're there. They're there in print. Washington Post, New York Times, mainstream media. Now, media itself. What does that mean? Media, what I tell people is media means messaging. And there's always some type of purpose behind messaging. Okay? Messaging, especially in the political sphere, is designed to move political power from one group to another group. Okay? And you do that in your messaging by finding those buttons that you can push and get groups to react to your message so that they help you achieve the end game, which is to move political power from one group over to another group. That's the job, that is the role of media. Now you can argue about whether or not, it's Fox's job or is their role to move votes from people sitting on the fence to the Republicans. You can argue if it's MSNBC's role as a company to do the same, but moving the political power from where it is now and putting it into the hands of liberals. You can argue that. But in general, media is about messaging. Okay? That's the meaning of media. Political media is, again, about putting the words and the narratives out there that help to get voters to make a decision that ends up facilitating the shift of political power from one group to the next. Now, does media put out this message that blacks are oppressed? My view, yes, it's blatant. Um, and yes, it comes heavily from one side of the media. Let's call them out: MSNBC, CNN. You don't hear oppression on Fox. They'll be the first to say, well, blacks aren't really oppressed. Look at what they've achieved. They've had a black president. How can they go around saying that they are oppressed? Versus on the left media, um, blacks are being denied the vote. There's certain tactics being used by the states to keep blacks out of the voting booth. They're changing voting laws. These are examples of oppression. You can also throw in access to labor markets, which ironically you don't hear much from the media. But if you're talking to your friends, if you're on social media sites, you may hear that as well. But it's not as prevalent, in my opinion, in 2020 as it may have been a couple of decades ago, as to as to the as to the oppressive actions, if you will. So now, I know I said earlier that I am not here to give you any answers. So here's an opportunity to provide some insights into how you would break down and analyze this question and determine whether or not this is happening. One, you start off by looking at the question and breaking it down by definition. Okay, mainstream, we went through that. What is mainstream? Media, what is media? You may even want to go out there and define oppressed. Very important. Does oppressed mean, oh, Alton has a funny voice. He sounds like he's from the Caribbean, blah, ha, ha. Nah, that's not oppressed. The person saying it may sound silly, ignorant, whatever. Or, it may be true in their ears that my voice sounds funny because I'm from the Caribbean. But is that oppression? No. Does it stop me from getting up and participating in the political process? No. Does it stop me from going out and finding a job or two or three so I can eat? No. So that's not really, in my opinion, oppression. However, you may differ, but as long as you get there by breaking down that question and those words and coming up with definitions and then taking your facts and plugging them in there, that's the only way you can answer that question. I touched on this last week in my introductory rant. But if you want to avoid emotionalism in any of your analysis, you want to make sure that you can break down the definition of the terms that you are hearing, because that's how media does its job. It's going to throw the word salad at you, and it's up to you to determine what kind of dressing you're going to put on it. It's up to you to determine what's in there. Are these croutons real or are they synthetic croutons? I don't know. Is this iceberg lettuce or is this romaine? I don't know. You need to take a look. So that's why when you listen to media, you don't listen to have your heartstrings tugged. You listen to break down what they're saying. Now you may be saying out there, oh, Alton, oh man, that's a lot of work. Well, yeah, it is. And you should take it upon yourself to do that work. Why? Because every time you go in that voting booth, you're making a decision that impacts a whole lot of people. And it's one thing to say, yeah, we need to get out to vote so we can make some changes, blah, blah, blah. But if you're going in there ignorant, no knowledge, no information, not going through the work process, the critical thinking that's necessary to come up with some reasonable answer, you shouldn't be in voting booth. You really shouldn't. I don't want you in. So the nonsense about, oh, this is too much work. No. If you want to play in this space, then you owe everyone else some work. You just don't sit in front of the television and, oh, such and such said, I don't like that person, or they said that this guy is a fascist. Okay, that's fine. Your next question should be then, what do these terms mean? What evidence is there that this person fits that definition. So again, you start doing that, okay? One, you're going to edify yourself with some knowledge, and two, the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. And another bonus, you're going to find yourself finding other data sources that are a lot more reliable than the mainstream nonsense that you're getting right now. So, again, back to the original question. Um, Not to give you an answer, but when you're breaking down a question like this, any question in the political space, you got to look at the terms, pull out a dictionary, pull out a statute. You've got the internet. I'm not going to tell you Google everything. Google is a great tool, but you got to go a little further. But you use it as a portal, literally. You enter, and then when you enter that portal, you go down that rabbit hole and you start learning. If you're not going to do that, then you should not be in a voting booth. Okay. That was question number 1. I've got 9 more minutes left. I promised you 30. This question comes from another old friend, a classmate. This is from Diane in Chicago. And as you may have picked up, I hope you picked up, I'm from the Caribbean. I'm a West Indian by birth. Lived here now in the U.S. for 42 years. But you can take us out of the region, we're still connected to it. And we look back at home and we ask ourselves, well, what can we do to help improve what's happening? Okay. And based on that, Diane wants to know, is Caribbean unity the answer to challenges experienced by the region? What has to happen to get the Caribbean to work cohesively, to form affiliations or partnerships that are advantageous to the region? Okay. I'm going to go, yeah, got the Caribbean, but let's expand a little bit, okay, to see why this question is important really to everybody. Definitely to us West Indians, but those of us, for people occupying the Western Hemisphere, that's important as well. Okay. And here goes. People on the left and the right have been showing concern or expressing concern about China's economic and military might. Okay. I think, especially when it comes to politicians, members of Congress, again, like the media, they chop up the word salad. They've got word salad, and they throw words out there to invoke nationalism, jingoism, a lot of emotion to move you. Okay. China, you say the word China, that's one of those words. And I don't care if it's from a member of Congress on the left or the right. China is a competitor. We have to do something about China. What is it that we want to do about China? We want to limit, the United States wants to limit China's influence on the globe, especially its economic influence. And don't be mistaken, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that think that this is just a, mano y mano, U.S. wants to fight, and the Chinese want to fight, and let's get together and have a fight. No. The Chinese do want to expand economically. You'd be naive if you think that's not happening. Chinese want to expand. They've spent Lord knows how many decades being the manufacturing factory for the United States. They spent decades saving up cash and buying U.S. securities, buying U.S. bonds, I think up until 2010. Okay? Now they're ready for the next move. All right? What we're seeing, for example, in Ukraine is giving some insights into what China's potential is when it comes to global economics. Small example, the United States voted, influenced other members of the SWIFT system, the Society for World, I forgot the title, World Infrastructure for Financial Transactions. Check me on that. Ensure technology that allows you to move money across borders. Okay. The United States has heavy influence in that society, and they were able to persuade other members to vote Russia out. Okay? No problem. Maybe for the Russians. They've got options. One possible option, joining up with the Chinese and going on to the Chinese version of SWIFT. It does not allegedly have the same quality or reach as SWIFT. That's going to take some time to develop. But the potential to create an integrated economic bloc in Asia, one that includes China, Russia, India, maybe some other Asian nations, is very scary to the United States. It's also scary to Europe, but more scary to the United States. The United States, since Alfred Thayer Mahan and his Manifest Destiny policy, have been trying to enter Asia and dominate Asia and keep Asia under its influence since the 1840s. This pursuit of influence resulted in World War II, in the Pacific Theater. This pursuit of influence in Asia resulted in the Japanese trying to halt U.S. expansion by attacking Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. We all know how that ended in 1945. Okay? But that was the cause. Right? Asia is a huge market. The United States wants to enter and sell. It's already there, but if you can carve out a larger market, if you can increase your influence, that's the game you want to play. The downside to the U.S. is when the other side tries to play the same game. The Chinese have been selling technology to Europe for years. Russia provides a huge amount of natural resources to Europe. So you've got challenges in that European market by China. Again, the United States wants to maintain some kind of grip in Asia to sell its product. So the United States can't afford to have influence, Chinese influence, in its own backyard in the Caribbean. Well, I won't say that boat has completely left the harbor, but if you've been following news in the Caribbean regarding the island nation of Barbados, you know they dumped the Queen. She's no longer the head of state. And they are pursuing talks with the Chinese for more economic cooperation. Okay. I can't run off a whole list of what other island nations or areas in the region, but if they're dealing with little Barbados, shout out to my Bayesian posse, saying little, but Barbados, they'll keep looking for other areas of opportunity as well. Now, what does this mean for Diane's question? When the West Indies tried to form their own federation back in they did. They formed the federation in 1958. It was short-lived. It lasted only 4 years. Internal problems, egos got in the way. Okay. Now, what would we have to do to formulate, to take another shot at Caribbean integration. Now we have CARICOM, we have in the Eastern Caribbean where my roots are, you have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, you have those Eastern Caribbean nations have forming their own group of nations, okay, group of island nations, but still maintaining their own autonomy to a great extent. But can you have a archipelago-wide integration? I think that will depend on a couple things. One, energy. Okay. If these islands can invest in, I'll call them nodes of energy, an integrated energy structure based on, I don't know, you can use your renewables, I guess overplay these days, but in the Windward Islands, you can get plenty of wind. And geothermal has been tossed about as well. Put together an energy infrastructure that drives down the cost, okay, of drives down your energy costs for homes. In the Virgin Islands, I believe the numbers, for example, are around 33 cents per kilowatt hour. Here in the States, I think the average is between 9 and 11. That's very expensive. Also, the reliability of those systems. If you want to strengthen your economy, you need a reliable energy infrastructure. You can't do it. You can't have a strong economy without that. You can't have a strong island economy without that. There's no way in hell you're going to have a strong integrated West Indian Federation economy without energy. So you got to work on energy. What's the other infrastructure? Your broadband infrastructure has to be maintained. We're in the digital age, and you need energy to maintain broadband. The two do not work without the other. Right now, I got firecrackers going off, but I also had some kind of storm moving through here. The storm, Georgia Power, as a transformer block, oops, show's over. Rarely happens in the U.S. It's more frequent in the Caribbean. You can't afford to have that if you want to have an integrated, viable economy in the Caribbean. And then I'd say, lastly, there are a bunch of other items. Well, yeah, you need freedom of movement of labor. Okay. You can't afford to have any ego tripping. Well, you're from St. Kitts. I don't know if we should let you in here to work. No. Talent has to be able to move. Talent, like any form of capital, has to move to it's going to move to a vacuum. It's going to move to where it can be put to its best use. Okay. So, if you want the Caribbean to integrate, to work cohesively, to have cohesion, the glue has to move. There's no way around that. And then I would say, lastly, definitely fair taxation. Okay. But shared resources. Okay. The Black American community for a minute. Really, the use of the word community. And then I'll go back to the Caribbean. I don't like the word community. It means nothing to me. Okay. Community is not just about your skin color. It's not just about your lineage. It's not just about what you like to eat. No. Communities are based on resources that can be exploited. If there's no resource to exploit, there is no community. It's just a party that happens, a couple of days a week or something when you get together. No, that's not community. Well, Alton, you're leaving out culture. No. Culture is important. Trust me. Okay. Love my soca, love my calypso, love my reggae. Okay. Love my Johnny cake, love my saltfish. But you need more. You need a resource. Okay. And it has to be tourism has been, the resource now for the Caribbean, at least in the Virgin Islands where I'm from. It's been the main resource since the late 50s. Okay. But you can't run an economy just on tourism and government employment. You got to have more. That's the biggest challenge. And given the diversity of those islands, okay, the islands that have a commodity-based economy, if they're really serious about integrating with the rest of the Caribbean, they're gonna have to be ready to share. There's gonna have to be some structure put in place so we can share those resources. Again, I'm just throwing this out there. Guyana is exploring their newly found or recently found oil resources. Trinidad and Tobago produces oil. I think Jamaica still does the bauxite thing. But those mining processes are always calling for new technologies to be developed, new intellectual capital to be deployed. Those islands alone don't have a monopoly on that kind of knowledge. So where your islands which are more tourist-based or financial-based economies, they're going to have to step up their intellectual property game and be ready to contribute in order to earn whatever flows from those resources. I think. So that is one approach that region can take if it wants to take another shot at true economic and political integration. Okay. So I've gone over time. Promised 30 minutes. I'm at 36 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flesh out these questions and answers to these questions a little more on my blog. You can find me at altondrew.com. That's ALTONDREW.com. Also, law and politics of altondrew.com, all one word. You can find me there. You can find me on anchor.fm, my podcast. That's anchor.fm, I think, /Alton Drew. Okay, you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn at, you guessed it, Alton Drew. And if you're brave enough, you can also find me on Facebook. And you can also find me on Twitter at Alton Drew. Okay. I enjoyed this. Again, I think this is my second official go at it. I've done a couple of videos, really rough, trying to get the feel of being on a camera for more than 3 minutes, and doing more than just probably taking a still shot. So, thank you for bearing with me. I hope you got something out of the talk. And again, visit my blog, visit my social media sites, and we can connect there. Thank you, and have a good evening, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.